And this hour, we start off in the United States of America, where we're checking on the latest update with regards to the U.S. elections. President-elect Joe Biden is still waiting for incumbent Donald Trump to concede the election. Reports coming from the White House is that Trump is digging in his heels and is planning to let the courts decide the outcome of this race. Nick Harper joins me now from Washington. Nick, welcome to the program. Where does one start with this conundrum of the U.S. elections? Trump, he hasn't been tweeting as much of late, but he says he's going nowhere.
That's right, yeah, Donald Trump certainly showing no signs of conceding this election or preparing to transition out of the White House. He has been rather quiet, like you mentioned, on Twitter. He tweeted out quite a few tweets during the course of Sunday, yesterday, and more than half a dozen of them were flagged by Twitter as being disputed, suggesting they were simply factually incorrect. This morning he has tweeted out about the possibility of the stock market increasing, markets opening in about 30 minutes' time, likely to jump on the news that the coronavirus vaccine that Pfizer was working on is 90% effective. He has talked about that in his tweet. He didn't mention the election. We're waiting to see if we get any more comments from him, but we do know that it's Monday morning and his legal teams intend to return to court later on today. His lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, speaking on Sunday, suggested there could be as many as 10 new lawsuits coming out during the course of this week. It seems as if the Team Trump are very much digging in for this to be a long and protracted legal fight. They have already sent teams to many of the disputed states, but they are suggesting that they will be putting forward more lawsuits. We already know that some of those lawsuits have failed in some of the states. Judges have thrown them out simply because there has not been enough evidence. And that seems to be the issue for the Trump team at the moment, that they simply don't have the evidence to back up these lawsuits. So even though we're seeing this fighting from Team Trump, it may not go anywhere, which also leaves the question as to how will Donald Trump want to leave the White House? Will he want to do it graciously? Will he want to do it peacefully? Or will he want to go out with a fight? And at this stage, it seems as if he's choosing the latter, fighting with his final breath here in the White House.
Now, Donald Trump is facing pressure to cooperate with President-elect Joe Biden's team to ensure a smooth transfer of power, obviously, when the new administration takes office in January. Now, the General Service Administration, which is tasked with formally anyway recognizing Biden as president-elect, which begins the transition, but the agency's Trump-appointed administrator, Emily Murphy, has not started that process and has given no guidance on whether she will do so at all. So Biden, while planning ahead, moving ahead, we saw he brought out a COVID-19 task team. As it stands, he's doing it alone.
That's right, yeah, this General Services Administration issue is a huge headache for the Biden transition team. There would normally be a recognition from this team that we have a new president-elect, and yet that has not yet happened. The problem with that is it means for the Biden transition team, they will not be able to speak to federal agencies, they will not be able to access funds that they will need to set up certain teams and prepare them for the White House when Joe Biden is inaugurated on January the 20th. It causes some very big problems. But Joe Biden himself is showing that on Monday morning at the start of a new working week, he is pushing ahead. We know that he's in Wilmington, Delaware. He's preparing to receive briefings on the economy and on COVID-19. And like you mentioned, he's created this newly formed Transition COVID-19 Advisory Board. It's made up of 13 members, including the former Surgeon General and a former FDA, Food and Drug Administration commissioner. They will be briefing the president-elect today, and we are expecting remarks from him later in the day. He plans to say that he will beat COVID-19 and that he plans to build the economy back better. Because for Joe Biden, not just throughout this campaign, but now that he is president-elect, he has said that COVID-19 is central to the work ahead. He's making it one of his top priorities, and we're seeing that from his choice. Rather than trying to choose cabinet appointees or choosing who he would have as his top White House staff, instead he's put together this advisory board. He's receiving briefings on COVID-19, and he plans to speak about it later today. It's very much central to his plans for the next 74 days until he enters the White House.
Go back to the West Wing now, the East Wing, apologies. Apparently, reports are coming in that maybe the wife of President Donald Trump has asked him to concede. Any truth in that?
None of this has been confirmed yet, but there is lots of speculation in the US media that there are several key people within the Trump team, including his family, who are now saying to him it is time to bow out gracefully. Suggestions also that Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, who have been by his side throughout these last 4 years, have been talking to him over the weekend to try and push him into a concession speech, or at least in some way in part feeling and mentioning that he has lost this election. It's unclear if those rumours are true and if there's likely to be any success. There are also other suggestions that Donald Trump plans to do everything he can from a legal standpoint to push ahead with these lawsuits over the next few days. And if he feels that they are getting nowhere, that is the point that he will change his tactics and his strategy and move towards concession. But those are the rumours. There's no clear, concrete evidence coming out of the White House that those are the plans, that there is anything on Donald Trump's mind that suggests he plans to concede.
Now, it's also reported that Biden's biggest shift from Trump will likely be his approach to allies. While Trump has attacked traditional American partners like Japan, South Korea, Europe for, well, free riding on defense commitments, as he called it, and cheating at trade, Biden has been, well, promised to work closely with them. We've already seen Germany's Angela Merkel come out and saying, congratulate the president-elect, although countries like China, Russia, the Kremlin have not come out and congratulated Biden yet, because they know and they understand that these 70-odd days before the new president is inaugurated in January 20 could spell a bit of trouble economically for them anyway.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that fact that we have not yet heard from China or Russia reacting to the news that President-elect Biden has been projected as the winner in this election. We're nearing the 48-hour mark, 48 hours since we heard that news, and yet we still haven't heard from those countries. Like lots of other countries have come forward with statements of congratulations. They've picked up the telephone to speak to the president-elect. We do know that Joe Biden's strategy will be very different. He plans to be much more multilateral in his approach, the opposite to that unilateral approach, that America First approach that we saw under President Trump. But yes, still questions about what his China policy will be. We're not expecting there to be really any huge change from what we saw under President Trump. Joe Biden intends to continue that hardline approach, trying to hold China to account, but he intends to do it in a slightly different way. Rather than just slapping unilateral US tariffs on China, he has said in the past that he would work with allies to have that together approach, that spirit of cooperation, but to still try and hold China accountable. It's unlikely that he would instantly roll back any of the tariffs. He will probably keep them in place. So China will be looking at this thinking, well, we're unlikely to see much of a change, even though there is a change of administration, and therefore being slightly reticent about coming forward with their congratulations.
Let's come back home now. We saw Donald Trump when he left his round of golf on his way back to the White House. He drove past Americans celebrating his loss. What do the numbers look like now, Nick? Are we anywhere closer with regards to North Carolina, Georgia? I know that those are going to be recounted. What do the numbers look? Surely the Electoral Commission is going to wrap up the election, the votes, and the outstanding ones will be those recounts.
Well, yes, we still have 4 states who are continuing to count. Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia and Alaska. All of those are still in play. The numbers continue to suggest that Alaska and North Carolina will go to President Trump, that Georgia and Arizona will go to President-elect Biden. But those counts are still taking place, and they will have to count every single vote. It's just whether the US networks project a winner in any of those states before the final votes are in. The suggestions, though, in particular, when it comes to Georgia and Arizona, because those final votes that are being counted are mail-in ballots and from largely Democrat-leaning cities, they will be going the way of Joe Biden. We are expecting a recount, though, in at least one state, Georgia. The Secretary of State in Georgia has said that a recount would happen because the margin between the two candidates is less than 0.5%. That triggers an automatic recount. So that will need to happen. But historically, when recounts take place, there normally isn't much of a change. Perhaps a dozen, several dozen ballots at most would change in the overall count. And Joe Biden is ahead by several thousand, at least 7,000 ahead. So it might not make any difference to the state of play within the state. It's still likely to go to Joe Biden. He's already over that 270 electoral college threshold. That is why he has been projected as the winner. Those other states, Georgia and Arizona, would take him even further. And it wouldn't be enough for President Trump if he were to get Alaska and North Carolina, which seems likely, for him to be able to make up, to catch him up, because we already know with Joe Biden over 270, he will be the next president.
Indeed, also at play, Nick, were, well, the Senate and the House of Representatives here. And that's where the Democrats lost out a little bit. They'll be worried going into a possible Democratic president being in Joe Biden. Joe has now got to navigate not having a majority in the Senate when he's trying to pass any sort of legislation or anything. He's going to have a tough time down there.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, this is always the thing that any party entering the White House hopes for. They hope to control all three of them, the White House, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. It therefore allows them to be able to push through their policies, their ideas, in a much easier fashion. If they don't hold one of them, the House or the Senate, it makes it much, much trickier, because either the House or the Senate would be able to block their plans. Of course, this has been the problem for President Trump over the last couple of years, the House being controlled by the Democrats. And it looks as if it will be the problem for President-elect Biden. It looks as if the Republicans will maintain that majority in the Senate. There are still 2 Senate races. There will be runoffs for those. They're both taking place in Georgia, both of Georgia's Senate seats. That runoff takes place in January. Now, the Democrats hope that if they win both of those runoff elections in Georgia, it would give them an even split in the Senate. So 50 Republican senators and 50 Democrat senators. Therefore, it would be a virtual tie, and the tiebreaker on any policy that they're trying to push through, the tiebreaker would be made by the vice president, which of course will be Kamala Harris. And therefore, they're hoping, therefore, if they get the 2 Georgia Senate seats, they would be able to get a majority with that tie-break win each time. So all eyes will be on Georgia in just over 2.5 months' time. It will be a very interesting race for both of those. But the fear is that the Republicans will maintain that majority, therefore making it much harder for the president-elect, Joe Biden.
Nick Harper, SABC News correspondent, thank you indeed for speaking to us all the way in Washington. Always a pleasure speaking to you, brother. Thank you very much.